Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for joining the session. In today's session, let me give a quick introduction about the session. So in today's session, Sujith from Kerala, India, he's working as a test architect for 14 years of experience on a test automation and manual testing and AWS cloud services as well. And Sujith will be covering on an introduction to AWS service. So in today's session, if you have any doubts after the session, feel free to raise a hand or ask the questions directly to the speaker. And yeah, Sujith, please carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Vinayak. In fact, my thanks to QA Tech Talks as well for giving me this opportunity to present a session.
Thank you, Sujith.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Independence Day wishes to everyone.
Happy Independence Day.
Yeah, thank you. So now, as you might have heard, like AWS is something very kind of dynamic kind of thing, and really kind of a market changer in the terms of how we really work, how we really produce software, and it's still changing that. And it's really a happening space as well, because a lot of new features, a lot of new services come up every day. So it will be really interesting to get started with understanding what is this all about, how cloud works, how AWS works. So this introductory session is primarily aimed to achieve that goal, to give you a feel about like what is AWS, what is exactly it is doing. Let's go through the console and understand a couple of services on a very high level, and then see if it's really interesting for us to take it forward as a learning or pursue or understand AWS a bit more. So about me, Vinayak must already have told you, like I'm working in this test engineering space for quite some time. And I started learning AWS 2 to 3 years back when it was kind of very much used in one of my projects. And that interest really hooked on to me, and I continued it, exploring it. And in that journey, I took 2 certifications as well. But in AWS kind of things, just having 2 certifications is not a really big thing. You still continue to learn. You have still new findings, new learnings, everything happening every day. So it's really, in a sense, it's a bit difficult as well to keep ourselves updated about the latest happenings and understand what changed post our certification, something like that. So it's a very interesting and challenging kind of a thing to understand and keep continuing the learning. But it's a kind of worthy investment in us, in how we understand this software space from just from a working perspective as well as from a career perspective as well. So this is going to be the learning outcome of this webinar. I hope like after this end of 1 hour, we'll be able to get a broader understanding about what is AWS. And we'll also see like how a free tier account is being created. That's how we get started with putting our hands dirty, exploring AWS. And we'll explore 3 services on a very high level. One is the IAM, identity and access management. Then we'll go to servers or compute feature, which is called service called the EC2, and another storage one called S3. We'll also look at one simple use case. Since we have many folks from the test engineering, I thought to include one of those kind of test cases so that it's really relatively easy for you to kind of follow along. This is just one simple use case what we are exploring, but there are a few more other areas in which some of these AWS services can really help us. So I'm just put like what is that service and how it can help, in which area it can help as well. And also at the end of this, we'll look at what all are the kind of fringe benefits we are going to have if we start learning AWS. Okay. So let's get started. So how did things work? How did this software industry used to work, say some 15 years or 20 years back? if you are an experienced resource, maybe you must have kind of worked I actually just when I started, it was kind of these kind of traditional way in which we used to work. Like, everything used to happen within an office space. Like, all the entire you put the software, you put into the software development, how you host the software or application, how you maintain your data centers, how you maintain your server storage, all these kind of things. Everything we used to kind of physically see how it's happening, how the work we are going to put in is how it's going to reach to an end customer. And even before that, when you must have heard about stories like Infosys or Microsoft, all those kind of biggie techie companies actually started in a very one room space or a garage in sometimes. So that's how it used to work. And it continued for kind of decades, like this way of functioning. But slowly, as time progressed, we started seeing some major issues with this kind of traditional approach. The important thing is, like, instead of focusing on building our own piece of software and maintaining our applications, or to investing, instead of investing ourselves in the application or make sure like how we can improve that application, we started spending our time and energy or focus into building and maintaining these kind of data centers, like putting all these wires and plugs together, hiring the people who can monitor this infrastructure, take care of their power supply, cooling, all those kind of things, all those infrastructural, those kind of things. It was really tough to do that as well, because all these things, you sometimes kind of under provision, sometimes you over provision. You are not able to kind of exactly predict what is going to be the usage like. So it's really difficult. And imagine you need to start operating in a new geographical zone. It was not really easy to go in that kind of an expansion mode. The scaling was really limited. And what happens if some natural disaster is going to happen? Your whole data center, your whole the whole infrastructure you have built, putting all this money, putting all this energy and effort, it's all going to be kind of vanish away in very few time. So that was also a big challenge. So that's how the tech industry started thinking how we can go into a better way of operating, how we can ease some of these pains. That's how we moved to something called cloud. So it all started in the early 2000s. The whole journey or exodus into the cloud space started in 2000s. Even though it's very kind of surprising or to understand, like, there are still a lot of organizations who are maintaining or doing all these kind of things within their on-premise. But one kind of impact the pandemic had on the way we operate is like the migration to the cloud has kind of increased. The speed has kind of increased, and more companies are now moving to cloud, and a lot of variations are going to happen in that space itself. Instead of relying on one cloud provider, now we have started to take the service of multiple cloud providers, and a lot of things are happening in that area as well. And this kind of migration is still going to increase, and as per all predictions, it's going to increase manyfold by the time we completely come out of this pandemic era. Maybe by 2022, 23, it's going to manyfold increase. Beyond what problems the cloud is solving, we should understand like what is actually cloud computing all about. We understood like what is the pain point here, right? But what is exactly, how can we define what is this cloud computing? Simply put, it is the on-demand delivery of computing resources for an amount, or for a payment you are going to make. The on-demand delivery, whether it could be kind of computing, compute power or database or any other services which has some special capabilities, or database storage, all those kind of things like machine learning, lot many kind of anything from very basic computing stuff to very advanced or niche kind of things. All these things are available to you as a service. You can operate everything from your web application, and you have a lot wide variety to choose from as well. From an on-premise kind of a thing, you cannot actually demand, I need this particular configuration server by tomorrow. We cannot actually provision it. The provisioning part is really tough there. You have a wait time. But in the case of cloud, that's very easy. You have a wide variety to choose from, and you can choose from that very huge bouquet of resources according to your need, according to the paying capacity you have. And you can be rest assured, like you are going to pay only for the usage you are going to have. You are not going to pay anything upfront, but you're just going to pay what did you actually use. So that makes life a lot easier. So this is how cloud computing has really put some value on the table, and it has kind of improved how we not just working, how we actually live as well. So a lot of things, a lot of all these services which we are using to a great extent in our real life are behind the scenes using cloud computing. And imagine if you're going to do the same kind of things as a software manufacturer, if you're going to do the same kind of things as we did earlier, it is going to make us shell out a huge amount of money. So there is a lot of savings as well achieved for the manufacturers, for the end customers, like. And you must have heard about like different cloud options. You must have heard about services like platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, like that, right? In addition to that, we have another kind of a classification as well, like in terms of how cloud really works. We have some three classifications there, like based on the deployment model it is going to have. One is a public cloud, which the service providers like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud provider. Then we have some Alibaba, IBM, Oracle. Lot many players are there in this public cloud space. So they actually do all these kind of infrastructure provisioning, set up everything, and they give it to their customers. So that's how what we call as public cloud. Anyone can kind of subscribe to that service and avail all those, use all those features and service, and make their own things using those computing resources. There is another case in which there is some particular needs. Like imagine you are an insurance company, or you are a data company working in Europe. You have some huge compliances there to be followed, right? Like you should not actually send your data out of your premise. There could be some use cases like that, or medical records, something like that. In that case, organizations make private clouds. So they make all these cloud. It's somewhat very similar to on-premise, but one improvement here is like it can operate from any part of the geography, any part of the world they can operate from, but only that organization has that access to that cloud. So that is called the private cloud. And there could be some other use cases as well in which you need a public cloud provider or service for some of your needs, but at the same time, for your some security or compliance or data privacy needs, you might use a private cloud. So that's how we call it as a hybrid cloud setup, in which you use best of the both worlds. That's called the hybrid cloud. So these are three popular models which is currently there. Now we have something called the multi-cloud as well, which is going to come in, or it has already started coming in as well. In which you use multiple public cloud, like you use for something you use AWS, something you use Azure, something like that. So that's called the multi-cloud. So these are the deployment models which is already there. And when it comes to AWS, AWS is kind of a market leader. It all the whole cloud journey was kind of started all along by AWS in some early 2000s. And they started doing this just to support the business of Amazon. Once they started doing this, they thought like, why can't we put all these things as a service separately? So that's how they started Amazon Web Services as a subsidiary of Amazon. And they started making all these services the way they had internally built in, now made publicly available as well. So there's a service called the Simple Queue service. That was the one which was first launched publicly in 2004. Then they aggressively kind of added more services and features. As now we are speaking, we have some 200 plus services just offered by AWS, and it owns some 33% of the whole cloud market. Even when we are going to have these kind of number of players have increased many times, but still it holds this market share by some 33%, or at least 1/3 of the whole cloud market is owned by AWS. So as I told you, there are the portfolio of services AWS is offering is very, very wide. You have everything, like basically starting from database or storage or computing server, something like that, to the most modern niche kind of thing, like a virtual reality, a blockchain, machine learning, artificial intelligence, everything, whatever you can think about as a widely used industry, the IoT, there you have a service from AWS catering to that particular need. So when you get started with learning AWS, you can kind of feel kind of really bogged down by the number of services you're going to remember or number of services you're going to hear. Many names are kind of similar. So we'll have some tough time figuring out what this service is and how it is different from the other one. But that's how it is, because it has to serve a lot of industries. What this slide tells, like it serves a lot of industries, a lot of use cases, starting from airlines, stock markets, education, streaming and entertainment industry, retail sector, data, medical, many things are there. A lot of companies, the best companies in the Fortune 500, and a lot of good unicorn companies are using AWS to a large extent. And if you can just go through Google and understand Netflix, the journey of Netflix from completely on-premise to AWS is somewhat really fascinating and very interesting. They took some 7 years to do that migration. It's kind of a very unique kind of a thing. And since they were one of the early adopters of AWS, it took some really good amount of time. But it's a really interesting story to read through. So what makes actually AWS capable of serving this many number of customers, this many number of industries is thanks to the global infrastructure AWS is going to have. AWS global infrastructure is a kind of a tree kind of a structure. At the top, you have something defined as a region. So AWS offers its services across all the whole globe. And for a particular geography, it calls it under a name called region. So in India, we have only one region, which is in Mumbai, but we'll have one more coming in next year or so, which is at Hyderabad. So you can imagine, like with one region in Mumbai, it's going to serve whole of India and a lot of other countries within the Asia continent. So that's how wide is that scope of that region. Within one region, you will have multiple availability zones. And before that, the code you're going to see here, right? The EU West 1, US West 1. These are the region names. These are all very unique names. So for Mumbai, you call it by AP South 1. Within one region, there will be at least 2 availability zones. Maybe it could be somewhat like up to 6. In North Virginia region, there are 6 availability zones. Each availability zone is another clustering of few data centers. So at the top, you have region, then you have availability zone, then you have a lot of data centers. That's how, on a very high level, that's how the global infrastructure, how it is designed for AWS. And all the services of AWS are kind of region scoped. Maybe the price of one service at one region may be somewhat like this. Say you can say like 10 cents. In another region, it could be some 9 cents or 11 cents. So some kind of variation could be possible. And not every service is available in all the regions. So if there is a new service which is going to come in, it usually happens like they launch it at North Virginia, the US East one. So that region has all the services which AWS is now offering. Then when you come to the new regions which are going to come in, it may not have the new ones. The less commonly used services may not be there, but the most frequently used services would be available in almost every region. And you choose a region based on the availability of a service, the price you're going to have, and also latency or performance is an important factor. As you go very far into a different region, you'll be having a slightly higher latency or slightly more performance issues. So it's really advisable to select a region which is closer to your location. So when we do this demo and all, we'll be using the Mumbai region. It's not very huge, but the difference is not very huge, but still it's a very best practice to choose the nearest region if you have that service there. Okay, so now let's get started with seeing the console, AWS console, how to get started with this. Normally, when individuals or even organizations, when they just start their account, you will be going through an account creation process, and you'll be ending up with something called a free tier account. A free tier account in which you don't need to spend any money just for the account creation upfront. There's nothing needed there. But when you use something, you might get a charge. But even for free tier, you will have some 12 months of free usage for most of the services, not all. For most of the services, you can use for all your exploration, understanding, learning purpose, you can use most of these services under the free tier limit. But even then, if you go beyond a very high number of usage, there is a chance like you might get charged, even when you are in that 12 months kind of a honeymoon kind of a period. Once you get over this 12 months period, still for many of the services, you will have a kind of a usage limit. Say you can use a particular server for 500 hours every month. There are some things like that. Or for some compute, this particular limit, like a GB seconds, you'll be using this service for free. But if you're going to exceed that, again, you'll be getting charged. So that's how normally the free tier works. It's a kind of a relative term. Most of the services are free for the first 12 months, but if you go still beyond a particular limit, chances are there you might get charged as well. So we'll go to the console and we'll see like how we can create a account. So this is the page, like the portal.aws.amazon.com. When you go there, you'll get a page. This is a sign up page you'll be getting. This is how you get started creation of your account. You'll enter your email, password, and you can choose any account name. So I was earlier using something called a Learning AWS. Any name you can choose. You can, it's a 5-step process actually. Since I already have an account, I am not able to completely show this flow. By hands-on, but I'll show you the slides, how it will look like. So this was the page view, just show the first step of the account creation. Once you give the email, password, everything, then it will be asking whether it's a personal account or a professional account. Normally, when you do for a learning purpose, you will create a personal account. You can give your phone number, address, all those kind of details. And you need to give your payment information because even if you're going in that free tier limit, normally there is less chances of getting charged. But if the usage is very high, maybe you'll get some charges for that. So you can enter your debit card or a credit card number, all those kind of details here. And they will authenticate that account, that credit card or debit card, by making some very nominal, like just a 2 rupee or something like that. They will deduct from that account just to verify that it's a valid thing. And you need to give your phone number and all those kind of details just to give you more authentications or to give you a setup for you to set up the MFA. So for those kind of things, you need to give your a number as well. it will send you a verification code. Once that's also verified, you land up on this page. By default, you will be choosing this free tier account, free basic plan. But if you're using AWS in your organizations, you must be using a business plan or an enterprise plan normally, because basic plan is not really enough when you're going to work production-based systems. If you are a kind of in a very startup kind of a thing, you are alone or a very small number of team is going to manage, maybe you can choose a developer plan. But for this free tier account, you normally land up at basic plan. You always have that option to upgrade from here if there is a need. And you will be getting a welcome email as well. So that's the whole account creation process. And well, once you do that, you get an account which is called the root account. The account which you are going to create going through this particular journey, it's called the root account. The first two things you should be doing just after this account, basic account creation, is like, now you are as a root user, right? Now you are coming to AWS console as a root user. This root user is a very sensitive kind of an account. I mean, is an account because if that account is compromised, you'll be all your personal data, like your credit card, debit card, all this kind of information, all those kind of things, whole your account is going to be exposed or made available to the whole world. So it's not really good practice to do your work or do your exploration as a root account user. You should be creating another account. You can create as many number of users you want as a root user, and you can create for yourself, you can create another account and start using that. Except for this billing part, you really don't need to come or log into the root account for any other need. All the kind of development or kind of testing, exploring kind of things you can do from your other account, the non-root account you're going to create. And also, it's very important to set a billing alarm and a budget. Normally, students, when they create these accounts, they fail to do this, and they launch instances, they create DBs, they explore a lot, and finally they'll get huge amount of bills. And then they go behind AWS and write so many emails, get so many phone calls just to get this bill waived. So it's a very difficult thing. Don't do that. The first thing you should be doing as a root user is to go and create a budget and a billing alarm. So I'll show you. This is my root account. And in root account, I'll go to billing part. You can type in here billing and come there. And here at the bottom, you have some alert and notifications part. There it will ask you like create and manage your budgets. You can come here and create your own budget. You can go for this recommended setting of cost budget. You can go there, click next. And here you have, again, it's a 5-step thing. You can choose what is your amount which you're going to spend per month. This is my maximum budget. Like say, here you can say like my last month usage was for $8.25. So I'll say like my maximum usage, maximum amount I'm going to spend is going to be $10. I cannot spend anything more than that. Then you can give it a name like August budget or my root budget, something like that. And you can create your budget. And when you go into the third step, you will be getting a alert option as well. When you configure that as well, you will be getting emails. You'll be getting emails once it is going to cross a threshold limit. Like in my account, I have a root budget which is set as some $20. I have set my budget as $20. So my threshold is something like a $10 something. When it exceeds $10, I'll be getting an email. See, your budget is already 10. You almost crossed 50% of your usage. Maybe if you cross 50 more, you'll be you won't be able to use the services anymore. I mean, till the end of the month. So that's how AWS smartly saves us from ending up huge unimaginable usage costs. So this is something you should be doing definitely when you start out. And the next thing is you can go to IAM. IAM is the Identity Access Management Service. Here, this is a place you create your users. You can create groups, roles, something like that. We'll come to that. Under users, you can go there and create a user. So I am using Sujith Sukumaran. This is my master user account. So I am normally using that. But if you want, you can create new users here. Say my demo user. So it is asking me, there are different ways of accessing AWS. So the commonly we use one, now what we are using is the management console access. So I'm going to select that. This user will be able to access AWS only from the console. And I'm asking an auto-generated password. I'm going to do that. And it's asking me whether this user needs to be added to any group. I already have some groups already created. So I'm going to add it to the trainers group. I have a group called the trainers group. So imagine this is a new trainer, and it's added to this group called trainers group. This adding a tag is optional, just for you to understand or recall or group things at a later stage. When you see the builds, maybe you can understand by tag. Yeah, I created like for this one, maybe I can create like for event QA tech talk. So for this event, I created this. Maybe something like that for you to easily group things. So create user. So it's a very simple kind of a thing. Here, you will be getting an access key and a kind of secret access key and an ID, which you can use for your programmatic access of AWS. You can download it. I'm not doing it because I already have another one. So your user is there, my demo user. And when you go to the group, let's see what is this trainers group all about. For every group, you can add a policy, like what all are this particular user in this particular group are supposed to do. That's what we are defining here. Under permissions, you have a lot of policies. In this one, I have given administrator access because I'm not going to use a root account, but I need to do almost everything other than the billing or budgeting part. Other than those kind of things, I need to access a lot of other services. I need to read, write everything. So I have given this particular user an administrator access. But if you don't want that kind of, it's a very high privileged role. But if you don't want to give it something like that, maybe you can choose a different permission. You can limit to a lower permission, like say, like this is RDS. RDS is just a database. You can, if you give this policy, the user will be able to only access the RDS service. He or she may not be able to access anything else, but it's a full access. But even then, you can go there and select a kind of a read. This is how the policy will look. It's a kind of a JSON kind of a thing. What all things the user is able to do is defined in a JSON. But instead of giving a full access, you can give a read access. You can just give a write access. I mean, maybe write comes already with read, but you can selectively give different kind of options. So a lot of policy options are available for every user. So that's how you create your users. So as I told you, from your root account, create a kind of a administrator policy attached to another user, and then start using this new user. Don't come to use root user again. So in my following subsequent kind of console demos and everything, I'll be using this my administrator account, which is Sujith Sukumaran. I'll be logging out of root account as well. And so that's how IAM or basic kind of thing work once you set up the account. And all these kind of things you will go through, or you will do only if you're going to do on your own. You do the AWS account creation on your own. In organizations, you are not going to this kind of an area because it's all taken care by your dedicated operation team. They will create all these accounts and they will give you minimum privileges. They will give you the privilege only what you really need. That's how typically it works in real life scenarios. Yeah. So as we have just seen, I am. So that's the first service we are understanding. Every user or every AWS user, once they start as an I am user. That's the first service they kind of understand. So this is the place you create your users, groups, and you can have roles as well. So these are three different options you can have within that IAM. So users are typically people. So it's meant for people. You have a new person coming in, you create a user against that person. So that's how it works. And it's really good advice to, instead of giving every user a certain permission, it's really advisable to give a permission at a group level. So that maybe you can say for department A, this is the kind of permission they need to access this and this kind of service. It's different for a department B. So when you create a group for department A, it's easy to give that access. You just need to add a new user to that particular group. That's the only effort. You don't need to go and configure a policy every time for every user. That's not really kind of a scalable kind of a thing, right? So normally we create users, but the policies, everything is given at a group level only. That's how it really works. And there is another kind of a thing which is called a role. Imagine you have a server, and that server needs to talk to another storage service. So it's a kind of a communication between one service to another, right? In that kind of a thing, you don't need to give a user detail or a user password, something kind of a thing. You just need to expose a role. Say this service, like my EC2 service needs to talk to this S3. So let me expose a role, and we'll attach that role to this EC2. Say that for EC2, if you want to access this S3, you need to attach yourself this role. Then accordingly, you'll be able to access that S3. But you won't be able to access any other service, because your role is kind of limited by just what you need to do. So for service to service kind of communication, we create roles. I did not show you like how we create a role or attach it, because maybe we don't have that much time to explore all those kind of things. But we understood like what is user and how groups really works. Understand for roles, it's between service to service communication, we use roles. And now we have seen like how we can access an AWS service from the console, right? Similarly, you have other ways of accessing as well. Like you can access the whole create user you have done, right? You can do that and everything else, because everything in AWS is an API activity. So you can do all those kind of things from a command line. You have a very good documentation available about how we can do the same kind of things. Like this documentation is about what we did earlier, right? From the console. What if I need to do create a user from my command line? What is the command I should be using? So it's all defined here, and it's something like AWS create, AWS IAM create user underscore, double hyphen username Bob. So I'll have a new user created as Bob. So if you are more comfortable accessing things from CLI, you are more kind of hands-on kind of that kind of a person, maybe you can use command lines instead of going through the console and doing everything. You can do this, and whatever thing you need to do, it's all kind of you have a very good table of contents available as AWS CLI command reference. Whatever thing you're going to do from a console, you can do. Even some things which you cannot do from console as well. There are a few things like that you can do from the CLI. So that's another way of accessing AWS. And the third way of accessing is from SDK. You can use different SDKs for the language of your choice. There are a lot of SDKs available. You can add that from your IDE and accordingly access that. We'll see how that is done typically in one of our later examples, how that is done. So these are the three common ways in which you use how you access AWS. For console, you will have a username, password, everything kind of a thing. CLI, it's again, it's using access key. Access key we saw earlier. So this is another example of how access keys would look like. If you come to this console and go here, under the security credentials, you'll be able to see this access keys. I don't have an access key now created, but I can create new one here. So when you're going to access from a CLI as a user QA tech, maybe you can use the access key you'll be generating here that you can use for your access from the IDE or from your command line. So just understand, like, your access key and the secret access key is as sensitive as your password, because anybody can connect to your services using that information. And more importantly, if you're going to use it, never put it in your code. That's also really important. So now we'll go and see a bit more things hands-on way. So I have put a kind of a hands-on kind of a thing, which will help us understand two services. Now we saw IAM. Now we want to see two more services, which is one is called the EC2, which is a server kind of a thing, and S3, which is a storage kind of a thing. So we'll understand what is S3, and we'll understand what is EC2 using this example. So in this one, what we'll be doing is, like, we'll be putting up an Apache server, Apache web page, very, very simple, basic hello world page from EC2. That will be the first step. And then we'll create a storage space within S3 that is called the bucket. We'll create a bucket in S3. Then we'll do a kind of a Selenium Java script kind of an approach, in which we are going to load the EC2 web page, and we are going to check whether that hello world text is present there. Whether it is there or not, we are going to send that assertion report, the test-ng HTML report, to be stored into the S3. So this is the example we are going to do here. It's a very basic, simple kind of a thing. And this will kind of help us to explore what is S2, what is S3, as well as what is EC2. I hope you understood this example, right? Before that, let's just understand what is EC2 before creating, or before going to the console, creating this hello world web page. What is actually EC2? So EC2 is one of the basic kind of a service offered by AWS. It is called the Elastic Compute Cloud. Basically, you can imagine it as a virtual server. You're going to give a lot of options. You're going to configure a lot of options, and you can create a virtual server on your own. That server will have a kind of similar to, we'll have an SSD for our laptops or for machines. For every EC2 instance, you'll have an attached virtual drive, which is called the EBS. So EC2 is very basic kind of one instance is one server. Likewise, if you want an application to be hosted on EC2, typically you don't depend on one EC2 instance, but you will create an array of EC2 instances, a lot of EC2 instances, and you can do a lot of things with that. You can do load balancing, you can do auto scaling, like you can scale up, down based on some configuration we are going to do. So a lot of things are available using EC2, but EC2 is one of the basic building block into setting up servers. And a lot of other services are also inherently using EC2. So we'll just go to the console and see what is it. So this is my administrator account. I'm going to type EC2. Yeah. So it says like it's the virtual servers in the cloud. So I'm going to come here. You have a lot of options available here. Maybe you'll start with launch instance. So we're going to launch our first instance, first EC2 server. We have a lot of options to choose from. Actually, you have like Linux AMIs, different flavors of Linux distribution, or you have different Windows options. Ubuntu, I mean, lot many things. For deep learning, you have something dedicated to that, some high capability instances there. So for your different use cases, for depending on your the performance you're going to expect from your server, you can choose from there. But since we are in this free tier account, if you're going to use anything which is tagged other than the free tier eligible, you will be getting charged. But if your usage is going to be within limits, if you can select the free tier, you won't be getting bills. So I don't have, I'm going to set up a very basic instance, right? So I'll be choosing this Amazon Linux free tier eligible template. So this is called the Amazon Machine Image is the template, the basic template which can help launch a EC2 instance. So I'm going to select this one. It's asking me like there are again different types of same Linux instance available, like the capacity, small, medium, large, something like that. So as you go up, the network performance will be very high. Memory it is going to be using it will be very high. The CPUs attached to it will be very high. So like that. So I'm going to choose a free tier eligible instance type. So I'm going to choose this T2 micro. It's a very basic kind of thing. Only will have one CPU attached to it. We'll have just 1 GB memory. It's only very for low to moderate usages. You can choose this. So I'm going to select that. And it's all asking me some other details. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to select all the recommended or default settings. But since I want to launch an Apache server, I just need to give some bootstrapping information here in the user data section. So I have that bash script already available here. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to put in here. So what is this doing? It's going to kind of install an Apache server for you, and it is going to give a hello world into that page. It is going to feed that hello world message into that page. Very basic kind of a thing, very basic Apache server, but I want to expose it. So this is, I want to have my EC2 instance as this hello world web page. Next option, I'm going to choose the storage. This is an associated SSD. I'm going to have the default one here as well. Again, it's asking me whether I need to add any tag just for me to easily recognize at a later point of time. So I'm going to give an event like QA Tech Talks. Okay. And now you have that option to choose what must be your security group. So I'll choose a default. Default security group is like it is giving you SSH access, but since it's a web page, I need it to be available from my browser as well. So I'm going to choose HTTP. So it automatically populates the port range, all those kind of details here. So I hope now my machine would be available from the web page. So it's asking me to review all this information. Nothing. Okay. So I'm going to launch it. Launch. So it might take some few seconds, maybe less than a minute to launch the instance. It's in pending state now. Yes, it's running. So this is my instance details. What all we have selected, it's all visible here, like it's a Linux machine, the configuration we have chosen, all those kind of things, capacity, all those kind of things, it's available there. If you go to the other tabs as well, you will have more details of what we selected. So I'm just going to see whether it is available. So it's loading that web page. Maybe it's by default going to HTTPS, I guess. Yes, it's going to HTTPS, but we have exposed it as HTTP. So yeah, so the Apache server is available, and it's giving me this hello world text message. So it's up and running now. Okay, so this is basic thing, and now we need to come back to our slide. And so now we have completed this step one. We launched a hello world web page. Now, the second one is to create an S3 bucket. So what is S3, by the way? So S3 is an object storage service. S3 is very hugely popular offering from AWS. A lot of organizations use. And in fact, a lot of AWS services as well. Like imagine for you are using a database. The database for its backup inherently uses S3. So S3 is kind of very popular and widely used as well. Object storage means you can save or store a lot of unstructured data in S3. It could be files, it could be images, it could be video. A lot of kind of things can be stored in S3. So that makes it that the popularity is due to that particular reason. And as you can see, like the use cases are many, like backup and storage for disaster recovery. If you want static websites, you can easily do it from S3. Media files, all those kind of things you can use. For that, you can use S3. In S3, we create, we store our files in a space called bucket. We create something called a bucket. Maybe you can imagine something like a folder. You don't normally use the term folder there, you use the term bucket. Or you can imagine like a directory. So for you to actually execute or to do this scenario, you need to first create a bucket. So I'll again go back to EC2. I mean, go back to our console and I'll access S3. So here, this is my homepage of S3. I have a lot of options. Like I already had few buckets already created, but for this particular need, I'm going to create a new bucket. Your bucket name should be unique name. It shouldn't be something used by already some person, just like your Gmail account, something like that. The bucket name should be globally unique. And it should not have uppercase letters or spaces, something like that. So it's all small letters. I'll try this name to QA Tech Talk Demo. Hopefully it's not already taken. Let's see. So it's asking me what region you want this bucket to be. So I'm going to choose my default region, which is Mumbai region. Okay. By default, it will block all the public access of that bucket. Maybe I'll ensure versioning. Just create bucket. Yes. So the name was unique and it shows a message like you have successfully created your bucket. Let's look inside. Yes, it doesn't have any objects created. You don't have anything here. That's fine. Now we'll go back to our slide. So the next thing, now we have completed the step 2 as well. And there is some additional thing which you need to do. But before that, let me explain about, I've just done a Selenium Java, and I have added this Java SDK as well into my IDE. I'll show you how it is. So this is my Maven. This is a Maven project. And inside this, I have added Selenium and TestNG. And in addition to that, I can add this Java SDK dependency as well. It's all available in Maven. Whatever service you need to have, you can choose the corresponding SDK option. This is the SDK just for S3 kind of things. But if you choose this Java SDK as a whole, you'll be able to explore all the other services as well from your code. So I have chosen both actually, but for this example to be shown, we just need Java SDK for S3 SDK. And I have written a very basic script. So this is the driver factory I have configured just to give me different browser information. And this is my test actually. So I've just named it an EC2 test. So I'm going to use a Chrome default browser option here. And the test which you are going to do is like, it is basically going to just launch the EC2 instance from this script. Actually, it is going to launch that EC2 URL. And it will check for whether this text is present there. This hello world text is present there. So that's a basic assertion it is going to do. And if it is there, we should be getting reports under the surefire reports, the test engine reports. And once the report is the HTML file is generated, whether it could be pass or fail, we want that report to be sent to the S3. So here we need to come and fill what is the bucket name, and we need to give the file path, which is going to be, will generate some file called the AWS test here. And we just need to choose where is this actual S3 bucket location is going to be. So it will take the profile credentials against my account, which will be available once you create the AWS, and you'll be downloading that access keys, right? You'll be getting a file generated called the credentials under the AWS folder. So from when you're running from local, it will help. But if you're going to run it from some other, like a Jenkins or so, maybe you'll need some other mechanisms to be put in place to do the same kind of things. But for this demo purpose, we don't need that kind of thing. We are going with very basic kind of thing. So again, I have not exposed any of my credentials in my code. It's not there. But since I'm executing from local, it will take from my local details. So before I can run this, I need to give two information. One is the EC2 URL. I'll come here and I'll pick this, the hello world page. I'll come here and I'll give this URL detail. Okay, so it's there. And I also need to choose the destination bucket. So that's why we created the bucket already. Come here, go to this one. So your bucket name is QA Tech Talk Demo. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to put that as my bucket name as well. First, all the other things are already there. The file name, file path is almost the same kind of location, right? It's not going to change. So I have already given that. What HTML file it should be putting into the S3 bucket. So I have chosen the AP South one, my default region as well here. You can choose to whatever region, provided your bucket is already there. If your bucket is there in your US region, you can put it there as well. So whatever. So that's the basic script what we are going to execute now. I'll come back to my console and I'll do mbn test. But before that, let's go back and make sure there is no file already there in the bucket. Okay, it's not there. Let's see how it works. Okay, the compilation work. It's launching the Chrome driver browser. Yes, you could see the hello world page. Yes, the build is success. Now the assertion as well passed. Okay, so as per our hypothesis, the file, the HTML file should come in this bucket. Let's see. Yes, so it has come here in AWS test.html file. So let's go and open that. Okay, so it's showing like at 8 p.m. It run, and it was this, it shows like what all tests passed and EC2. Now this is just the file. If you're working in a team, maybe you can share this S3 object URL. Since we have enabled versioning, right? The file name is almost going to be the same. So whatever happens, it's going to kind of overwrite, or maybe it will write again, but it will put different versions. So the file name is almost going to be the same every time. You can share with your team. This is my report, like easily. Or if you want still, if the details is not really kind of sensitive, if you want that to be exposed as a website, maybe you can do that, because S3 allows creation of static websites from your bucket detail. It's very easy to come to a bucket detail, go down, just at the click of a button, you can create a website out of this one. Like now we have it as in a disabled state, but if you going to select this option, the HTML file which you're going to generate, right, you'll be getting an S3 website as well against it. So if the data is not really sensitive, if it can be exposed to the outside world, maybe that can be done. So that's also something very handy. So that's how we did this example. So we understood like what is EC2, it's a virtual server, and what is S3, it's a storage, it's an object storage kind of a thing. S3 is kind of infinitely scalable storage, because the maximum file size, one single file could be 5 TB. 5 TB is the maximum file size it's allowing, but you can store any number of 5 TB. Of course, you'll be having a storage charge, but there is no limit to it. So S3 is kind of infinite storage space. So these two are kind of very, very commonly used two services, EC2 and S3. Yes. Now we just saw what is basics, but you can have more applications of AWS as well in test automation and all those kind of things. If you want to run your Selenium grid for a distributed kind of a setup, you can use the Kubernetes within the Amazon managed Kubernetes, which is called the EKS. The same Kubernetes, open source kind of a thing, but you can easily manage or configure that. You just need to do the half work of the Kubernetes part when you're going to use it from AWS. So that's very easy way of doing a Selenium grid. You can have this service called AWS Device Farm. It supports a lot of browsers and a lot of mobile devices, real devices. It's available in AWS Device Farm. You can use that if you want to do cross-device testing. So that's also very, very handy kind of a service when it comes to testing or test automation kind of thing. If you need some batch jobs or some manual data kind of a job to be done, you can use a service called AWS Batch. If you want to set up huge amount of test data, or you want some huge reading to be done from an Excel sheet, something like that, you can use this one called AWS Batch. Similarly, for similar kind of use case, you can use another compute service, which is called Lambda. It is very, very cheap. Lambda is very cheap, actually. You can use many number of times, thousands of times, before you get at least $1 charged. If you're going to do many event-driven architecture kind of testing, you can use Lambda. Maybe in this case example which you have shown, right? Imagine you need to monitor this S3 bucket again and again, and imagine you need to do something else once the HTML test HTML is available in S3 bucket. You can use a Lambda to do that, the additional job. So one good thing is like these kind of services can be used to work with all the other AWS services as well, all the other AWS features as well. So that gives us a flexibility to connect or plug together all these different services and then build our own test engineering architectures. Just like developers do their own application architecture, for test engineering, for our own infrastructure building, we can use a lot of these services together. And do you have more reasons to learn AWS? Definitely, because as I told you in the beginning, organizations are more and more moving to cloud and definitely going to do like new things like multi-cloud kind of a thing. If you learn one cloud service provider, the concepts are almost going to be the same for the other one as well. So if you're going to learn AWS, maybe AWS, since AWS has a lot of features, it will be easy for you to imagine you move to another organization. There, it is used, what is used is Azure or a GCP. Will be finding it very easy to learn that new stuff because the concepts are almost the same. And nowadays, almost every application is completely hosted or built in the cloud. That's what we call the cloud native applications. So you'll be finding it very easy to learn those things as well. Now we'll be starting to use more things like Kubernetes or other kind of monitoring tools, GitOps, all those kind of things you'll start using as and when you progress in that test automation space. There are high probability you will do all those kind of things. And even if you're going to do a kind of an exploratory human testing, even then maybe you might need to understand what is this service all about, what is this functionality all about, and maybe start using that. So there also maybe AWS could come in handy. And now we have started seeing many opportunities as well, which expects all these test engineers, quality engineers to know at least one cloud platform. So from an opportunity perspective as well, understanding AWS or learning AWS makes a lot of sense. So how can we learn? Actually, many people have that kind of question. Certification is one way, but I'm not saying like it's a you must do any certification to do AWS. You can have other ways as well, like you don't imagine you don't want to do a certification, but you just need to know few things, few services. Maybe that's also a way of doing it. You can do AWS training and certification within AWS. They have a very dedicated training department. They do regular webinars, regular kind of training sessions on their AWS site on twitch.tv, and it's available on AWS YouTube channels as well. A lot of materials are available already there. But one good thing about certification is like you can go it in a very structured way. The learning can be very structured and very detailed as well. So that really helps actually. Instead of learning something from this one, something learning from that one. Maybe if you're going to in a structured way, that really makes some things very easy. And there are a lot of other good websites like the AWS Reskill. A lot of things are already there. And you can join, if you're really interested, you can join any user groups. Very active communities are already there. So these are all different avenues in which you can start learning and again continue your learning, all those kind of things from AWS understanding perspective. So I think I have taken some 10 minutes extra, but that's all I have. I hope you will have, definitely will have some questions. Maybe I can answer that.
Thanks, Sujith, for the wonderful session. And we have a question from Sainath. Oracle Cloud is a private entity?
No, Oracle Cloud is also a public cloud. Just like AWS, you can have Oracle Cloud as well. Just like, as I told you, like IBM, Alibaba, Oracle, a lot of cloud providers are already there. So these are all public cloud. We can use them.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And where does Jenkins or Docker or Kubernetes fit here in this pipeline?
Yeah, in AWS, you have many services under the CI/CD pipeline kind of a thing. AWS have their own kind of a thing, which can be used instead of Jenkins if you want. But they don't provide a Jenkins as a service, but you can host Jenkins within AWS. That can be possible. You can, just like we saw an Apache server in EC2, right? Like that, you can host your own Jenkins servers within AWS. That's really possible. And you can have Docker. For Docker, there is a lot of integration within AWS. They have their own services which is supporting Docker. Or if you want your custom kind of a Docker space within AWS, that can be done. And about Kubernetes, just like what I just mentioned, like the Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service, you can use Amazon's own equivalent to the Kubernetes. They have something called the ECS, which is the Elastic Container Service. It's almost the same thing like Kubernetes. The only thing is it's proprietary of AWS, not the open source one. So a lot of all these options, what we are doing in typical other tooling, all those kind of similar ones or kind of tie-up kind of thing, it's already there in AWS. So you can do Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, everything within AWS space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the explanation. And yes, Samir, yes, this workshop is also taught by Sujith. Yes, Sujith will be taking care of the workshop as well.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Vijay Raghavan.
Vijay Raghavan. Yes, thank you, Vijay.
Yeah.
So guys, let's wrap it up. So thanks everyone for joining the session. So the workshop is planning on end of this month. If anyone interested, please contact us. So Sujit will be covering for the like certification preparation with the course outline I have given in the chat box. Please go through it. And if any like questions, feel free to contact us. And once again, thanks Sujit for this wonderful session.
Thank you, Vinayak, for the opportunity. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.